So what do you know? Another iPhone with another signature problem. This one has no touch because of a motherboard issue. It is super common for iPhone SE 2020 to have no touch because of a broken connection between the connector, the screen, to the CPU. In today's video, we're going to walk through how to repair that, how to run the long jumper to fix it, and get it all working. It is also restarting every 3 minutes. So hi, I'm Jesse from VCC Board Repairs. Thanks a lot for joining us here on the channel. Make sure you smash the like button if you like these videos where I share solutions to common iPhone problems. Subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this, and share this video with all your friends. Also down below in the description, I will link to all the tools I use in today's video, as well as this t-shirt I can micro solder. So if you're a repair shop tech that can micro solder, it's a great shirt you should get. So let's go ahead and get started with this video. So one of the things you want to check for first is this specific device had no touch when it came in, but I've already disassembled it. I've taken out all the screws and touch is now working. So you can see I can stop and start it. It's working. But while I was getting ready to film this video, I saw it actually restarted on me just out of nowhere. So I think it also has the Mic1 problem that I made another video about, which I'll link down below in the description, about a disconnection from the charging port to the CPU. This one has both, what it seems like. So we'll go over how to diagnose that, but I do want to show you how this device is behaving with no touch. So right now it's working. You can see I can have touch, full touch, but if I press down like on the SIM tray right here, it still has touch. Let me press down a little higher, and there it goes, no touch. So no matter what, even if I let go, no touch. You gotta lock the screen, unlock it, and there you go, you have touch again. If I press down somewhere around here, the touch goes away. Now this is after confirming with multiple screens and everything. So 100% way to check whether you have this problem is to actually use a multimeter. There it goes, it just restarted. So the way to test this is to use the multimeter and measure the pins to see if there's a disconnection from the display connector to the CPU. So let's go through that process. So you will need a multimeter to do this type of diagnosing, and a microscope and all those tools. So if you don't have any of this equipment and you do need this repair, send me a message. I will link my website down below, vccboardrepairs.com, and go to the contact us page. But here, if you are a tech who needs to know how to fix this, is what you want to do is put your multimeter in diode mode. And then what we're going to do is measure the two connectors. So this is the charging port, and this is the display connector. This is where touch comes from, and this is where the charging port Mic1 issue comes from. So iPhone SE2, SE 2020, these have like within the software, for some reason it requires the device to detect a specific sensor. On this model, it needs Mic1, which is one of these pins here. And if it doesn't detect it, so like if it's unplugged, a bad charging port, or in this case, you have a disconnection from the charging port to the CPU, the communication, that's when it restarts, as you saw just now. So what we got to do is pull up ZXW. This is a board view software. It gives us known good readings for the motherboard. And here, this is the charging port connector. So we're going to look at, I believe, so it's the first two here on the left of this ground pin. So if you start here on the left and skip the first ground pin, go into the second one here, and then these two, this is what we want to check. So what I like to do is just in diode mode, red probe on ground, so like my screw post here, and then find the ground pin. It's this one. So this pin should give me, let me move the mouse, 662. Alright, so I'm going to mark the ground pin here. So the one to the left should give me 662, but I get half of that at about 355. This one we get 334, which should be 329. So I think my issue is going to be this one. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press down here on the CPU area, see if that diode mode reading changes. I do have to get creative on how I hold my multimeter probes. Oh, look at that. Just pressing down on the screw post. See how that fluctuates? It should not be fluctuating. It should be a solid reading. See, like this one is solid, but this one is all wonky. So pressure down, let go, down. So yeah, there's definitely an issue on this line, and I already made a video about this specific, it's actually this line here. So the name of the line is I2C1AP SDA. So I already made a video about this specific issue, so you can watch that for more detail. But the other issue we want to check for is the touch, which is the other display, the other connector for the display, which, just to jump to the solution, is going to be one of these pins here. I believe, I forget which one. It's one of these. So let me do the same thing. I'm going to start on this ground pin because there's one of these here. Actually, I could tell you exactly. So here on ZXW, turn on the first layer here. Let's see. So iPhone SE2, second layer. Oh no, this didn't load. We don't need the second layer, just the first layer. So this is where we can jump to, run a jumper. So this is where baseband CPU is in the SIM tray, and I believe it's like compass or gyro or something. So there's these three lines here that kind of go up at an angle. These are the ones that typically fail. And so this is the one that for touch. This is the one for a 3-minute restart. And this one I haven't seen fail. So usually these two. And it looks like this device has both of these that have failed. So this is SPI AP2 Touch CS Con L. So if we zoom out and go to the connector, there it is. It's the second one to the left of this ground pin. So let's take a look at the connector. So my red probe on ground over here. Let me eyeball it for this ground pin. This one? No, it's this one. My bad. Alright, so I have a reading 664. Yeah, just putting pressure. See how that fluctuates? Whereas any other pin, I just solid. So no matter how much pressure I press on the board, it doesn't change. But this one, I just all over the place. That means there's a weak connection somewhere. And I'm sure at some points you'll just get a a solid OL reading. OL means, like, just like right now it's OL, I have nothing connected. That means it has detected nothing. So this is a ground pin, and it's this pin here. So what I like to do to solve this no touch issue, one of the first steps is first find that pin, which is going to be the problematic one. So this is ground, which is basically here where there's nothing. One, and then the second one over. So it's this one here. So I like to jump to this capacitor. I think it's a capacitor. Yeah, it's a capacitor. So now that I kind of scratched out a little bit, I know which one to I just need to expose enough to have something to solder onto for when I run my jumper. All right, let's just go with that for now. So this leg of this cap can be is just the same as the pin here. Yeah, see how it's just going everywhere? 800s. So here's the issue. So the goal here is to essentially run a jumper from here all the way to over here. So I'm gonna run a jumper from here to there, and then I'm gonna run a jumper from here to here. Because basically the line, as you see, there's a little line here that's in red. This is the path that pin should take, but there seems to be an issue somewhere underneath the SIM tray, is the guess right now. I don't really know. I guess you know, someone eventually will pull out the SIM tray and try to dive deep on the issue, but the solution is really to run a jumper here to the corresponding you know, connector, and then same for this one. So let's go ahead and run these two jumpers and basically get started with the actual repair. All right, so basically what we got to do is remove the CPU shield so we could access that area we're going to jump to. Make sure you take off these stickers here, and then take this off. And then we have some glue type stuff here. I have the board on a preheater set to 120 Celsius, and it makes it so that I can pull that off real easy. And then for this spot right here, I wonder if that's a sign that there's an issue. Why is there why is there a line there already? I don't know. I always see it, but I never really thought about it. All right, so just kind of slice into it. Then we're gonna use 400 Celsius 80 air to remove the shield. And then what I do is essentially grab it from this corner. Luckily, this shield is really easy to come off. So just heat around the perimeter and just grab it, and it should lift up. Now I'm going to take it off my heater. And one of the things I do like to do is actually peel off the sticker because it kind of gets in the way. So I'm going to do the same thing. Slice across it and just try to peel it off. Since it was hot, it should come off pretty easy. Probably should have done it on the heater. Alright, that should be good enough. Now there is some compound here on the baseband CPU, so let's just kind of get this out of the way. And then here's the fun part. We gotta expose the traces. Now there are some people who prefer to run a jumper to a different part of the board. I just prefer to do it here. I feel like it's a lot simpler, but I also don't like running super long jumpers. So the trace will be somewhere around here. So what I like to do is just dig out. Well, first, kind of scratch out some of this so I could see a little better. There's some factory flux and stuff like that. So see if you could make a line. And then on this side, there's actually kind of nothing here in the middle. So you could actually use that to start kind of scraping away. some of this. You do have to be careful. I don't recommend you just do this if you never really scraped out layers before. Definitely practice on a donor board so you can get a feel for it. You do have to have some experience with it because you got to know how much pressure to put. So it's going to be somewhere around here. So this top layer is basically all ground. And I'm using a number 11 X-Acto blade. And just kind of scraping out. Alright, so now I'm starting to expose some of the layer below it, so that's where you gotta start being a little more careful. So you want to be mindful of where your blade is scratching. Alright, so I've kind of exposed a good amount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my board on a little towel. And I'm going to clean up a little bit here to see if I can see a little better. All right, so I do have a special polarizer light for my microscope. So when I rotate it, you actually can see what you normally can't see. If I drop some ISO, you can actually see a little better. If I zoom out a little bit. So through the camera, it doesn't really translate well. But through my eyeballs, I can definitely see the traces now. So let me get a different blade, 1 second. All right, so the other one was getting a little too dull for me. Now we got a new blade. I could be a little more accurate with my scraping. So like right now I can't really see too much. Dropping some alcohol does kind of make things a little more visible. And I think I might have scratched out the bottom trace. We want the top one for touch, the middle one for the charging port connector. This is why I say you gotta be careful. You don't want to scratch out more than necessary or sever the trace itself. All right. So yeah, this polarizer lights is very useful, although it is expensive. Like a regular microscope light is like what, $30, 20 to 30. This one was like $150 from China. All right, I see the top trace. Now one tip is if you're gonna run jumpers to a really tight spot like this, it's better to do it staggered, meaning like maybe run jumper up here for one and then like down here for another one. So I'm going to try to do that. So I'm going to scrape out the trace a little further up here. You also want to be careful, don't scratch out too much because you could break the trace itself, which I've had issues in the past when doing other jobs where I had to scratch out traces like this. You're trying to be a little too, how do you say it, kind of like OCD. You're just trying to get it perfect. Next thing you know, you scrape and then the whole chunk of trace just goes with your blade. So be careful with that. Okay, so I did kind of scratch out the third trace, but that's fine. We could use UV mask to solve that. Alright, so I'm just inspecting it. Let me get some of these chunks of ground out of the way. All right, let's just go with that. So I'm just gonna try to dry out the board as much as I can. I use a lot of alcohol to kind of clean up the area. There's a lot of it here. So if we go back to diode mode, red probe on ground, so the sim tray. This might be hard to reach or even know which trace I'm touching. So I get 341 on something. $312 on another. 335. So I don't know. I would assume I touched all 3 traces. We could just guess. So first thing I'm gonna do is try to cover up this bottom trace I don't need right now. So we're gonna use a lot of UV masks today. So this is the UV mask I'm gonna use, the mechanic green UV mask. So I'm gonna push out a little bulb just here on the tip. All these dog hairs on it. Then dip my blade, just the tip of the blade, so I get a tiny little dot. Then I'm gonna use my tweezer to apply small amounts, and then switch to my other tweezer to kind of spread it around. Also, it's good to apply it to any of the ground here, especially since we're going to run jumpers. We don't want the jumper to bridge against any of this ground here. Although the jumper wire we're going to use is insulated, meaning it has like a thin jacket over it, so it won't short to anything. This is basically not required, but ideal. Otherwise, you have to UV mask the whole thing, like the whole wire, so it doesn't short to ground. Okay. So you can use a UV pen, like this one, or like this, a lamp. I'm gonna use a lamp in this case just because you can just place it and be hands-free. You can step away. If you use a little laser pen, this works great if you're just gonna do a quick UV drying. But when you're doing a lot of UV mask, it's better just put a UV lamp like this. Okay, so now let's take a look. You see the UV liquid has solidified, and then I'm gonna scrape out my middle trace. This one here. And my touch trace is going to be here. So just to confirm, let me go back to over here. So this one, so the way I have the board right now is it's kind of like this. All right, so this is where I put the UV mask. And then I'm trying to jump to these two. So that's what I was saying is I'm going to install a jumper here on one side and then on this one over here. That way when I'm soldering, I don't bump into the other one by accident. It's, whenever possible, doing it staggered like that, it's a good strategy. All right. So let me tin both of these. That's a lot of flux. I'm gonna use my micro pencil. So I'm gonna try with the knife tip. So my micro pencil with a angled tip. Let's see if this one will work. I'm using 183 solder. Let me clean it up a little bit. Use my solder wire to spread the flux. Alright, this might be a little tough to reach in there. Alright, I got one. Got the other. So I do see I tinned the other wire, the third one. So let me see. This is actually the first one I had to do where I needed both jumpers. Although it makes me wonder if, to future-proof this repair, that this should be done on all of them. I'm still on the fence on doing it, but we'll see how things play out. So I'm gonna put a little more UV mask here. All right. So basically the idea is I have basically added UV mask on, let's go over here. So I added UV mask to kind of cover this one. And then I put UV mask here across the middle so that this one it's over here, there's UV, and then this one is over here. So now let's take a look, see what this looks like. And where I'm gonna solder, this one goes to the charging port, this one goes for touch. So let's start the soldering process. Now, actually I see a little piece here I wanna get out of the way. All right, let's give this a shot. So I do have this wire, I got it on Amazon, I believe. 42 gauge wire. It is insulated, so this red copper is basically like a jacket. And we have to use a really long strand. So let me just cut a long piece. And then, okay, just checking, definitely long enough to reach where I need it to go. So let's see, let's start with the touch one. Let me just double check. Okay, so this was soldered on, the end of this soldered on there. All right, this is where you'll probably need multiple tweezers at once, so that you can maneuver these tiny wires. I just kind of want to bend it into position. Yeah, that should be more than enough length for the touch connector one. And like I said, this does have an insulated like jacket over it. So what I like to do is add some flux and essentially pre-tin the wire so that it's pretty much ready to go. So, oops, I got a little piece of solder wire here. Let me turn on my film extractor. And I use a sim tray as my little prepping area, and essentially it keeps moving. So the heat from your iron will burn away that little jacket, and also we want to get the wire full of solder. You can also use a blade to scrape it away, but I need to tin it, so might as well kill two birds with one stone, as they say. Then, and this one's gonna go to the one up here. I'm gonna use my tweezers to apply flux. So I'm gonna essentially bend it into position. But also keep in mind, I do need to get access to that lower trace. So maybe let me see if I could bend it like that. So I'm giving clearance. So I'm going to try to, I need to be able to hold the wire in place while I'm trying to solder it. Otherwise, if I just hit it with the iron, it's going to move. So let me try, uh-oh. I think I'm way too close to that ground. Let me peel up. So I'm basically kind of carving away this chunk over here. It gives me a little more clearance. All right, let's try this again. All right, let me try that. I'm gonna just tap the wire. Nope. All right, it's not attaching. I might have to expose a little more of the trace. It is a very small surface area, so gotta get a good solder joint so it doesn't come off. Just be careful. So I'm scraping away to expose a little bit more. All right, let me pre-tin it, which means essentially solder my own solder onto the trace. Looks like that other trace is in the way. Well, let's see if we can do it anyway. All right, let's try this again. I think that's attached. I'm checking to see if it bridged with that other trace, which it doesn't look like it did. All right, so I think that's good. So now this kind of preform or like kind of bend this wire into position. Essentially is going to go all the way down here. And then essentially curve up to over here. It's a general kind of routes. Yeah, I could see there's definitely plenty of clearance between the two traces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to UV mask this off. So isopropyl alcohol. Now I'm not going to brush here with the toothbrush just because I don't want to damage my work here. If I use my toothbrush, it could be too rough and break the pad or rip the trace off with the wire. Actually, let me put this on the heater so it can kind of evaporate a lot of the isopropyl alcohol. So I'm on the bottom heater or preheater, whatever you want to call it, at 120 Celsius. This is enough to be warm where isopropyl alcohol will evaporate, but it also won't melt anything. Essentially, when you pour alcohol, it will kind of combine with the flux. It's a lot easier to blow it away once it mixes with the flux. There's a lot of alcohol there. Or ISO. What do you guys call it? ISO or alcohol? All right, one thing I can also do to check whether I shorted between the two lines is if we go to, let me rotate this. All right, so I want to check, I put the jumper here, but I want to check, did it bridge with this one? And right here is a pretty tough spot to check. But if I just check continuity between here and here, that's the same thing as checking continuity between here and here. Because those two lines are the same as, you know, this pin and this pin. So let me pull up my multimeter just to, you know, double, triple check. So I'm gonna check. So 000 means continuity between the two probes. And actually, let me do this as well. So the one in question is this one. So ground pad to the left, and there's this cap right here. Is it that one? Let me just triple check. This one goes to, yeah, the middle one. So just to confirm, this is ground, the one to the left, and it's gonna be this cap here. So right here. So if I probe here, I should have OL. Yeah, so I have OL, no continuity. That means I didn't bridge the two lines, so I'm still good. So let's start UV masking our way to completing this line. So putting some UV mask on the tip of my blade. Just to poke it, it's kind of loose. So let me bend this wire slightly just to get it out of the way. Oh no, it broke off. Of course, this is the life of a solder tech. All right, let's try this one more time. I think I got it. All right, let's try it one more time. Yep, it's moving. That's what sucks about these tiny little traces. They're very fragile. Let me see. So I want to make sure I don't bridge. The problem is if we put UV before, what's going to happen is the UV will be too thick and prevent my iron from being able to reach the pad. If I don't put UV, then I have a risk of bridging the pads or the trace. So I think my recommendation is careful when scraping out your traces. All right, let me check for continuity again. It looks like it's on. Might not be the strongest joints, solder joints, but that's the solder joints. Oops. Yeah, not bridged. Also, I can check the wire, but it's insulated. I'll check that later. I don't want to mess with the wire too much. It seems to be on there. I do want to UV mask it just before I make things worse. So let's do this. Blob. All right, let's try to cure that real quick. So I'm gonna put the UV light and I'll be right back. All right, let's check. See how everything looks. So I'm gonna do this. So hopefully this doesn't break. Just to be sure. This is way past the, this part of the wire is kind of part I'm gonna cut off anyway. So I just want to check that there's a diode reading on here. And yeah, I do. I have 337 on the wire. So we know the jumper's attached. I think as long as we don't move it, it should be fine. I think I might put a little bit more UV mask, just like to kind of anchor it in place, so that if it moves, it won't put pressure on the actual solder joints. So the thing that sucks about, well, I keep repeating the same thing, that this is very delicate work. Also, let me put another layer here. It's also good to work by thin layers at a time. Oops, let me put some here. And then, so I say that as I proceed to put a bunch of UV mask, but all right, let's see. I want to break the jumper. I do want to position it. All right, so what I'm gonna do is, so this is the tricky part, is trying to put your jumper into the UV liquid so it stays there once it cures. So I'm gonna hold it with my tweezer and then hit it with the UV light. And then after like 5 seconds, you can let go of your tweezer. Don't look at it, by the way. And now it should be attached enough where it won't move anymore. You could then come back, and you basically just want to get some of it on there just to hold it in place. And then you can come back like this and just coat it some more. At least, you know, this part where you have to bend it into position. And then do the same thing. So I'm going to clean off my tweezers. And I'll hold it into position into the liquid, the UV liquid. All right, and then hit it with the UV light. And let go. All right, so I have a good amount of UV everywhere, so I'm just gonna let the UV light sit there for a little bit. All right, so that looks cured pretty well. Let me just double check that the jumper didn't come loose. So I'm gonna check the reading at the end of the jumper. That's our reading, so we're good. All right, so now we gotta kind of, I'm debating, should I add the other jumper and then work them together? You know what, I'll just do one by one just because I don't want to mix them up in the process. Having two jumper wires will kind of get a little complicated. All right, so I want to hold it there. There-ish. So let me see. Oops, out of view. All right. UV liquid. UV liquid. You know what would be pretty cool if the UV liquid was really sticky as well. That way you could kind of stick stuff down. But it looks like that kind of was sticky enough to hold it. So I'm gonna hit it with some UV real quick. Okay. Now I'm gonna reinforce it a little more. Don't forget we do have to run another jumper on top of this. So leave room for that. All right, some more UV light. The thinner the UV liquid you put, the layer of liquid, the faster it cures. So thicker the layer, the longer it takes. All right, so that should be good. This, oops. All right, I'm holding my finger across. Okay, let's do this. Let me run this one on this side of the underfill. The other one has to attach to that cap right there. So let's do that. Also, another trick is you can use some sort of object, like either a coin or like a little copper shim. Essentially, we'll apply weight to the wire and it kind of holds it in place a little bit for you. So here I am with some more UV, just the different spots to kind of anchor it down. So something like that. So we got 4. Let's see, actually 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 spots we put some UV. Doesn't really matter where, just the goal is to kind of just hold it somewhere, hit it with some more UV. And this should be good. Remove the little weight thing. Okay. All right, I'm going to UV this like that, just so I could hold it in place for my next move. Oops. So just add. By the way, this is why you want insulated jumper wire, because if it's not insulated, anything that wire touches is going to short to that line, and you don't want that. All right, let's go with that. I know I got some on the battery connector, but that's fine. I could scrape that off after. By the way, I am using the Tool 3D tweezers. These are really nice. I've always kind of jumped around different tweezers. For a while, I was really into the iNeasy by Kian Lee, but when these came out, they were even better, so I started using these. For a while, I was using some unnamed, like no brand name. I just saw them on the Union Repair site, and they looked nice. And then when I got them, they were really good. All right, I'm gonna add some right here as a final solder joints. And then I gotta figure out a way to solder the end of that jumper. Well, I need to create a new end, so essentially cut off whatever I need and then solder it. So let's see, how can we do this? So let's do that. Let's curve it like that. Oh, my blade is occupied with UV, so let's do this. I scrape out some of this wire, hold the jumper there, and I kind of pulled it up, and I left basically the end of the jumper right where I need to solder. This is why it's important to just expose what you need to, like when I'm exposing that cap, I only expose that one spot. That way I could run my iron over it and I won't bridge to anything else, just to the solder joint I need to do. So I'm just hitting there you go, it's attached. All right, I'll just leave it like that for now. Maybe I'll add UV after, but for now, let me just clean off some of this flux. So this is soldered on. I could poke it and it doesn't move. And just for good measure, let's verify on ZXW. So, my meter. Let me change this. Let me turn this back on. Make sure there's no short to ground. All right, 337. Expected reading is supposed to be, actually is this one, 336. Well, it's kind of jumbled together, but it should be 336, which, this is the pin that we're soldered onto, which is the one that goes to the top one, which I soldered onto. So essentially I've connected from here, bypassed all this, failure point here, and ran all the way to over here. So I think this should be good for that part. Now let's test this out just to make sure we have solid touch. All right, so let's boot it up and we have touch. And remember earlier, we'd press in the SIM tray area and lose touch. Touch is, oops, I was out of frame. So touch does not get disconnected or lost. So we should be good with that part. So now let's go back and finish the 3-minute restart issue. So I've now cut another piece of wire that we're gonna run the jumper to the line at the charging port. And we're gonna do the same thing. Let's prep the wire. And on this one, I think I'm gonna come in from the other side, but I'll show you right now in a second what I mean by that. So let me tin the end of this jumper wire. Okay. And we're gonna jump to that trace that's exposed. Oh, where's my other tweezers? Alright, so let me add a little bit of flux. Onto the jumper wire. So what I'm going to do is, oops, let's see if I can do this. So let's do this. I'll hold it here and bend the wire around. All right, so if you can see, I do have the wire coming around the left, so I have a good clearance to solder to the trace without possibly bumping into the other jumper. I just hope the other trace doesn't break and cause 3-minute restart, so we'll see. So let's try to line this up. So I need to be able to hold it in place while giving myself room for the soldering iron. My right hand is a soldering iron, so I gotta be able to come in from here. You know what, let me switch my iron tips. Alright, I've now installed the J tip. This one will give me a little better angles to work with. Man, this is tricky. Let me bend the wire a little bit more like this. Let's try, oops. Let's try that right there. And it looks soldered on, I can't tell, so I'm just gonna add a little bit more solder. So I'm adding solder to my iron tip. Okay, that looks a lot more solid. So let's do the same test as before. Let's expose a little bit of this wire so I can measure it. I'm gonna get my diode mode. Uh-oh, the wire rotated, so let me scrape this side as well. Right, red probe on ground. All right, at 33 something. So Yeah, that jumper is attached to something at least. And then let's double check that it didn't bridge or short to any other line. So from here to touch, no continuity. And then also, just to be sure, which one's the ground? This is ground. Yeah, see, now it's OL. Alright, and these two are not bridged, so yeah, we're good. Alright, so now just do the same thing where, well, first I gotta clean this. So let me put this on the board heater so the flux kind of softens up and it's easier to clean. So isopropyl alcohol and a little bit of air action. All right, let's get started with some UV work. So I think this is a pretty good angle as far as the beginning part, the part closest to the solder joint. So I'm just gonna UV mask that whole area to hold it in place. Oops, that's a big blob, so let me just spread it out as much as I can. So let me drop some into the solder joints. So it's all protected. All right, my tweezers are full of lint. And by lint, I mean dog hairs. All right, so let's bend this over to the side. All right, let's get the UV light. Let me hold it into the liquid. Oops, to the liquid. Just let me hold this there. Let me cure it for a few seconds. Then add a little more over here. Essentially point it towards the path of where it's going. All right, holding it with my tweezers, a little bit of UV light. And there we go. So it's kind of heading in that direction. All right, so let me hit it with some UV for a little longer this time. Okay, so now we're gonna continue on our path to success. So far everything looks good. I think this will be a successful case. Just very tedious work, as you can tell. And I hate it when the wire is just kind of way off to the side. So let me try using my little shim here. All right, that should be good enough for what I needed to do. and put some. You know what's funny is from China, in China, or the Chinese suppliers, they call this UV oil instead of UV mask. Which I don't know, I find it funny. Because I guess it's, I don't know if it's oil, but I mean, I get what they're trying to say. But yeah, UV mask, UV oil, UV liquid. All right, I got the jumper in place, and I'm going to hit it with the UV light right away. So if you ever come across this and you only need to do the jumper for the charging port so it doesn't restart every 3 minutes, that job is a little bit easier just because it's a shorter path to its location. From the trace to the connector is way shorter, just a single straight shot from left to right. Whereas the touch is a little bit longer, a little more curves involved to where it needs to go. Although I do basically charge a flat rate for this. Alright, so I got some UV mask all in that spot. So let me give it a few seconds here. And like I always say, don't look directly at the UV light with your bare eyes. There are some UV glasses like these, but I don't use them. I just kind of look away. But if you need to kind of work under the microscope and have it all, you need to be looking at whatever you're working on to do the job, then use some UV protection glasses. Okay, so let's UV this area here. I'm gonna get some more UV liquid, UV oil, as they call it. All right, this should be a good spot. Let's cure it, the UV light. By the way, as always, I will link to all my tools down below in the description. If there's something you don't find, a specific tool you're interested in that maybe I didn't link to, just let me know. I will find you a link and post it. By the way, let me know how you're enjoying the video. Don't forget to always smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. I post nothing but solutions for iPhone motherboard repairs. I mean, I do other videos too, but mostly iPhone repair and iPad repair videos. I've done a few Samsung as well. So if you find these videos helpful, if you have a repair shop and you're using my videos as, to help you solve cases that come into your shop, all I ask in return is a free smashing of the like button. That's it. If you want to be a little more generous, you can buy a t-shirt like the one I'm wearing right now, or any other t-shirt design that I have linked down below. And t-shirts do give me a commission from the sales, and they are designed by me and my wife, so it's all, and that money does go to the channel, buying more cool lights like the ones behind me, better cameras, microphones, stuff like that. Also just buying random tools. Alright, let's try to get this soldered on. Actually, before I do that, let me UV mask a little more. That's probably gonna be the last of it here. And if you do phone repair and you don't micro solder, but you want to learn, I also teach. It's an online course, and it's more of a mentorship than a course, because we do help you out as far as not just, you know, the mechanical and technical part of this job, but also the business side of it. So, you know, how to price things, how to quote customers, you know, how to handle, you know, sticky situations, you know, with customers where they're upset about something. You know, let's say a 90-day program is also linked down below in the description if you're interested, or you can send me a message on my website if you have any questions about it. It's like I said, it's all online and it's 90 days. So as you can imagine, you can't learn this in a few days. If you fly into a course, you will learn some stuff, but by the time you get home and actually go to turn on your workstation, you might have forgotten a lot of stuff. You know, our course being online lets you always have access to it. You never have to remember anything off the top of your head. You know, we have guides and documents, and all the previous live solder calls that we do are recorded and uploaded daily. So it's a huge resource. There's nothing like it on the market. And I'm trying to solder this wire. So the way that the course works is there's a training portal, there's live interactive solder calls with all the students, like a group call. You know, we have basically two live, like during the solder calls, we have two rooms that are happening at the same time. It's kind of like the beginner foundations where we're covering the basics, and then the more advanced one is the one I'm teaching in, where I teach you a lot of this stuff that I'm working through. They're literally repairs that are coming into my shop for repair, and I'm showing you guys step by step, you know, what I'm doing and why, and I answer any questions that are coming in while I'm doing the repair, so that, you know, you can directly ask me, you know, live in real time. All right, so I actually put a little weight here on the board because it keeps moving when I'm trying to solder this wire. It keeps moving as I'm trying to solder it. All right, that's soldered on. I do have an excess piece of wire sticking out. So I'm going to try to slice it off. There we go. Also, the program also includes a team chat. Basically, it's a channel. It's a messenger channel where you can message us. It reaches all of your coaches, and it's basically you know, 4 of us. So when you send us a message, it goes to me and the 3 other guys on the team, and we basically all can answer your question. So it's kind of like a group chat with all of us, and, you know, we help answer any of your questions. If you're struggling during a specific repair and you have some questions about, you know, the technique or whatever you're doing, we're there. You know, technically I'm there real late, so if you're the type that works, you know, if you're practicing, you know, at night while your shop is closed, so you can kind of get some alone time to focus on this, I'm usually awake until pretty late. So you could ask any of the other students, you know, how late I've walked them through different repairs when they're, you know, having trouble. All right, enough of that. So I've soldered the wire into position. I'm now gonna double and triple check. I have 331 or 313 ground. All right, 317, but you can see I'm actually pressing on the board. I'm not seeing it fluctuate, so that's a good sign, whereas before it would. So, but I do remember the diode mode reading is supposed to be 662, so I don't know what's going on. But what we can do is just test it out and see if it works, see if it restarting every 3 minutes. But as of right now, it looks good. It does look awfully close to that ground. You know, basically me trying to solder that on has melted the insulation and is real close. This is ground. So this is exposed real close. I was actually kind of hovering over it. But it looks solidly soldered on. So I just go ahead and cover it so we don't risk bridging or touching ground and then shorting it, causing other problems. Also, it's good to cover it just so that the next tech who goes to maybe unplug the charging port doesn't accidentally break the wire and undo my work. I'm going to do that for the connector area as well. So, oops, sorry about that. So I've added some UV mask here over the solder joints, essentially so that it doesn't accidentally get knocked off when the next tech who's trying to work on this accidentally break it. Also over here, this jumper is exposed, so let me cover it. I'm essentially adding my own underfill. In a way. All right, let's go with that. Let's give it a few seconds and we should be able to start testing. Okay, so we're booting up the phone. We're gonna test for touch again just to make sure that's still working. Then we're gonna test, we're gonna run a stopwatch and let it run. It should not restart after 3 minutes. If it does, that means there's something wrong with the jumper or there's something else causing it. So let me unlock this. All right, I'm gonna go to the clock. I'm gonna reset this and start. So let's give it some time. Well, obviously we see touch is working. So let's give it some time, see if it restarts. Meanwhile, let me show you guys. So if we go over here, this is the panic log analyzer tool. This is how we can tell if a device is restarting on its own every few minutes. Like for example, every 3 minutes, you can use this to figure out what is causing it. So you click read logs, it will pull. Basically anytime the iPhone or iPad restarts, it creates a log in the system to help the engineers at Apple figure out what caused it. But they also give us access to it for some reason, which is kind of weird. But this tool is a tool made by Wayne Bonici, and essentially it can scan the logs in the device and show them here on the PC, so it's a lot easier to see. And he also included some possible causes or solutions. So in this case, what we want to look for is, if you just kind of browse through here, you'll find it says Missing Sensors Mic1. Mic1 is the charging port. The charging port is basically the main microphone. So when you make a phone call, you put your phone up to your face and the microphone is here at the bottom on the charging port, and that's why it's called Mic1. So if Mic1 is missing, the phone will restart every 3 minutes. So you'll actually see here somewhere 180 seconds ago, which is 3 minutes, and that's what's causing the restart. So I have here the phone still running a stopwatch. So these are the logs that have been created in the past. It's not a real-time log. It is recorded, you know, when the device crashes and it restarts, it is recorded internally, and then this tool reads that history of logs. So I have a whole separate video that goes over that in detail, but roughly, in most cases, you'll find it says missing sensors, and then this is the cause. Mic 1 is a charging port. Mic 2 is the mic on the power button flex. So if you have a Mic 2 missing sensors, then it's going to be a power button flex. If you see something else like TGOB, that's usually like a battery issue. You see PRS0, which is basically pressure. That is the charging port as well. It's super common on iPhone 10, 10s, 10s Max. So these are all things you can use this panic log tool to check it out. All right, so we're coming up on the 3-minute mark. Does it restart? No. All right, so I think this is pretty much solved. We'll let this run. But as you can see, touch is working. It's not restarting. You can see here, if you just browse through all these, you can see how many panic logs were generated. Every single time it restarts, a panic log is created here, and you can see they're all Mic 1. So use this tool to, you know, scan the log, and it makes it easier, especially if you're not too sure what the issue is. Don't scroll down. Like, all this stuff is just extra stuff. The most important part is here at the top, and you'll usually find it missing sensors Mic 1. Now, this isn't the only error you'll ever see. You'll sometimes see other stuff where it's just completely different. You'll see maybe it'll say something else like ANS0 or something. I think that's NAND. Sometimes you'll see it say like hot, which I think is like CPU or something. I don't know. But there's a huge list of errors. But the most common that you'll run into is going to be Mic 1, Mic 2, PRS0, or TGOB, or TGOV. There's a few different ones, but just let me know in the comments if you ever run into any other ones. But you can see here we're way past the 3-minute mark. It's not restarting. So let's finish this up. I'm still not done here. We still have the CPU shield removed, which is right here. So let me show you how to install this so that you get a clean look. The motherboard looks virtually untouched, and we can get it, you know, completed and ready to go. All right, guys. So here's the deal. We got to install this shield back on. And it actually goes this way because you can see the sticker is kind of overlapping. So this is how it went. But we can't install it because this part will lay flat and basically damage the jumpers. So the trick here is, one, let's see where exactly does this lay. So this goes like this, which technically is not really, so it's gonna go something like this. Actually looks like it might have some room. Oh wow, like literally it's, the two jumpers kind of go around the two holes there. Let's see if you guys can see. So there's like the little openings. It literally looks like one jumper goes through right here and the other one goes through here. But let's imagine you have a case where it doesn't. Just get some wire cutters like this, and just to be safe, go like right here, try to snip it, and then essentially bend this out. Like that. And what you're doing is creating a lot of clearance so that you can still install this thing back on, but it won't touch your jumpers. So now that I kind of bent out that little thing, cut it off. And we have a little piece here that's gone into the trash can. And also make sure you're doing the correct side, because if you're looking at it like this, you might end up cutting this side and you flip it over and it's the wrong side. So now there's a giant gap there, and there'll be zero worries about your jumper touching the shield. So, and just to look closely, this is how the jumper is. And what we did was cut basically a big door all over this spot. So there's zero chance the shield will actually interfere with the jumpers now. Whereas before, it kind of looked like it, but you just never know. So now that we've kind of made that room, we could install this. We don't have to be all careful about anything. All right, and then to reinstall a shield, it's real easy. Add some flux to some of the solder joints like that. And just reuse the existing solder. Just a little bit of flux goes a long way. Now, the less flux, the harder it is to solder here. So I'll just add a few more. So yeah, something like that. That should be good. Then do the same for the other side. Now this other side is a little harder because of the little arm on the top of the board, so it doesn't let you see exactly, but just lift it up at an angle like this and do the same thing. As long as you see the solder kind of flowing, that should be more than enough for the solder to join the shield to the board and prevent it from moving. And there you have it. You can see my jumpers are right here. And this should be a permanent fix. I haven't had any of these come back for warranty. So either it's all good or they went somewhere else to deal with this issue, which I doubt it. You know, they paid good money for it, so they'll, high chance if there's any issues with these, they'll come back to me. You know, I always hear about stories how customers, you know, they had a bad experience somewhere and they don't even want to go back to the original shop because of how bad it was. I think I'd offer pretty good customer service where I won't scare anyone away. So if this was not a permanent fix, I probably would have heard from some people by now, but so far so good. So I would consider this a solution, permanent solution that solves 3-minute restarting and no touch. Depending on your case, you might have to do one or both jumpers, maybe even 3 jumpers for that other trace, although I haven't had any come in for that bottom trace. It's always that middle one or the top one for no touch. All right guys, so there you have it. This iPhone SE 2020 or SE 2nd gen is now fixed. We solved no touch, we solved 3-minute restarting, and you saw how much work was needed to repair it. But hopefully you found this useful. Now I do want to give a shout out to Jefferson Parada Pavon. I actually found this solution for no touch based on his post that I saw on Facebook. He had posted about the 3-minute restart issue where you can run that jumper to that trace that you scratch out. What happened was I had an iPhone SE second gen that came in for no touch. I had a few others that came in for no touch, and pressing on the CPU caused the touch to work. I had assumed the issue was the CPU, that it needed a reball, and called it a no fix. I had already packaged it, told the customer I'm sending it back as no fix. Then I came across that post where the guy ran a jumper from the charging port to those traces, and I was interested because I had seen other people posting about that same issue, and it seemed like it was a common issue. I went to ZXW, looked up the traces, and I'm like, wait, that same line, the line next to it was the one I had a disconnection on, and it's literally the exact same solution except just one line over, as you saw. So in today's video, you actually saw me do both solutions together, 2 jumpers, and we solved it. So shout out to him. I don't really know who he is or anything. I just was browsing Facebook and I saw that post, and literally I unpackaged the phone, gave it a shot, and what do you know, it solved it, and you know, device was fixed and everything. So that was pretty cool. So I did make a video on that charging port repair only issue, the Mic1, and now I have one for SE2 no touch. So hopefully you guys found this useful. Now I don't ask for any donations or anything. I just ask you guys to smash the like button and share the video and subscribe. You know, I do post a lot of solutions. Also, if you do want to kind of throw a little bit of money my way, is buy the t-shirts. I have a link down below. So if you're a repair shop, you know, these are all repair shop related gear, so check it out. Also the course, I'll link that below as well, and all the tools I'll link here in this video. I do get a small commission, so that helps out as well. You know, no extra cost to you guys, and you help me out, you help out the channel. I'll get some more cool lights and better cameras and all that. So I do appreciate all you guys watching here in the channel. Make sure you share it, smash the like button, and I'll see you guys in the next one.